The woman behind the counter didn't blink as she said it. "Take your hands off my counter before I call security." Her name was Melissa Grant, the manager of Vellum Encumbered Jewelers, an exclusive store tucked into the heart of Manhattan's luxury district. The kind of place where money didn't whisper. It hummed quietly in polished marble and imported chandeliers. Across from her stood Dr. Maya Carter, a calm, confident woman in her late 30s. Her posture radiated quiet authority, but her clothes were deceptively simple. Soft gray sweater, dark jeans, clean leather boots. Nothing screamed wealth, yet every stitch spoke of quiet quality. Melissa didn't see that. All she saw was a young black woman standing where she believed she didn't belong. Maya slid a sleek black titanium card across the counter. Melissa sneered before snatching it up. Without a word, she dropped it to the floor. The sound of metal on marble cut through the boutique like a whip crack. Customers froze. A child gasped. The room seemed to stop breathing. "Pick it up," Melissa said coldly. "Then leave." Maya didn't move. The manager's stiletto heel pressed down on the card, slowly, cruelly grinding it into the spotless floor as if she were crushing something. Beneath her power, whispers rippled through the boutique like wind through glass. "Security," Melissa barked. "Escort this woman out immediately." 2 guards began to move. Maya's assistant, trembling but composed, raised her phone to record. Melissa's tone turned venomous. "Put that phone away before I have you both thrown out." Then with words dipped in poison, she leaned closer. "You people need to learn your place." The sentence dropped like a stone into silence. Even the air seemed to recoil. But what Melissa didn't know, what would soon destroy her entire world, was that this moment was being streamed live. 50,000 people were already watching, and the woman she'd just humiliated wasn't just any customer. She was the chief executive of Carter Technologies, a company worth more than the jewelry store's entire parent chain combined. Yet at that moment, Maya didn't shout. She didn't flinch. She only stared at her fallen card, reflecting both light and insult on the marble. 45 minutes earlier, Maya had stepped through the frosted glass doors of Vellum & Co. The world outside buzzed with city noise, taxis, designer heels, briefcases, ambition. But inside the air was colder, polished, perfect. The smell of money lingered in every corner, expensive perfume, leather polish and champagne from unopened bottles. She had dressed deliberately understated. A look that said, "I don't need to prove anything." Around her, customers glided between glass displays, speaking softly, touching diamonds worth more than houses. Sales associates in tailored suits floated nearby, ready to serve, but only certain people. From the moment she entered, Maya could feel the invisible measurement happening. Every eye sizing her up, decoding her worth. 2 junior clerks exchanged glances. A silent judgment passed between them. Probably can't afford anything here. So they busied themselves, rearranging already perfect displays, adjusting non-existent dust. Up in her glass-walled office, Melissa Grant noticed immediately. Years in luxury retail had trained her to make lightning-fast assumptions. She saw Maya's dark skin, casual clothes, and confident walk, and her brain filled in the rest. Wrong demographic. Wrong energy. Wrong fit. Her instincts told her this woman didn't belong among Vellum's select clientele. The thought filled her with satisfaction she didn't even try to hide. Meanwhile, a young associate named Emma Liu, nervous but kind-hearted, approached Maya with a polite smile. "Good afternoon, ma'am. Are you looking for something specific? Or perhaps directions to another shop?" The tone was soft. The meaning was sharp. "Are you sure you belong here?" Maya's answer was steady. "I'd like to see your most exclusive pieces." Emma hesitated, glancing toward the office above. Melissa was watching like a hawk. "Of course," Emma said. "Let me show you our collection." But instead of leading Maya to the center showcases, where the million-dollar gems shimmered under crystal light, she led her toward the smaller section near the entrance. The section meant for tourists, not investors. Maya followed silently. She wasn't offended. She was observing. Her eyes drifted around the room, an older woman in pearls being pampered by 2 attendants, a man in a tailored suit escorted to a private viewing room with champagne. Then there was her alone, ignored. Every detail filed itself into her memory like evidence in a case she hadn't yet decided to open. She studied the psychology of privilege unfolding in real time. For 15 minutes, she said little, but she saw everything. When Melissa finally descended from her office, the sound of her heels slicing through silence turned heads. Every associate stepped aside. Authority had arrived. "Good afternoon," she said coolly. "I'm Melissa Grant, store manager. May I ask what brings you to Vellum today?" Her words sounded polite. Her tone said, "Why are you here?" Maya met her gaze without blinking. "I'm interested in your rare diamond collection." Melissa's laugh was a soft insult. "Do you have an appointment? Our premium pieces require pre-qualification." "I wasn't aware that shopping required an appointment." Melissa smiled the way a predator might smile at someone it's already decided to eat. "Our established clients understand how luxury retail operates." She leaned forward slightly. "Some pieces here start at 6 figures. Are you familiar with that price range?" The insult didn't sting Maya. It fascinated her. The confidence, the rehearsed superiority, the way Melissa performed for her audience of wealthy customers. It wasn't just about money. It was about control, but that control was about to shatter. Because Melissa Grant had no idea that the woman standing before her wasn't some browsing outsider. She was one of the wealthiest women in the country, and she was about to turn this moment into a reckoning the entire world would witness. Melissa's laugh lingered in the air, a sound that dripped with false charm. 6 figures, she repeated, emphasizing every syllable as if it were a gatekeeping spell. It's not uncommon for our clients to spend more than some people's yearly income on a single purchase. The room had quieted again, listening. The older woman in pearls glanced over approvingly. The man in the private room peeked out, sensing drama. Maya could feel the weight of every watching eye, and she stayed utterly still. Her calm unnerved Melissa. "I'd like to see your pink diamond collection," Maya said, Melissa's eyebrows arched. "Those pieces require verification," she said smoothly. "We need references, existing purchase history, or financial documentation. Surely you understand. Our clientele are particular." Her tone made the word sound like a velvet-covered dagger. "I see," Maya replied, her voice even. She reached into her handbag and placed a simple white business card on the glass. "Maya Carter, Chief Executive Officer, Carter Technologies." Melissa glanced down for barely 2 seconds before sliding it back across the counter, as if it might stain her fingers. "I'm sure you understand," she said again. "We serve a very refined circle. It's not just about money. It's about culture, taste, and belonging." Maya smiled faintly. "I'd like to speak with the owner." "The owner trusts my judgment," Melissa said quickly. "And my judgment says this conversation is over." Maya's assistant shifted uncomfortably beside her, but Maya gave a small signal. "Wait." The silence grew heavier. The 2 guards in the corner exchanged looks. Melissa tapped a manicured nail against the counter. "Security, please ensure this customer is escorted out. She's disrupting the atmosphere for our real clients." "Real clients?" Maya asked quietly. "You know what I mean?" Melissa snapped. "People who fit our brand." The words landed like slaps, but Maya's expression never changed. "Interesting," she said softly. "You've said quite a lot about your brand today." She reached into her wallet and produced the black titanium card. She placed it gently on the counter. "Let's see if this fits your expectations." Melissa's eyes flickered. Then, with deliberate slowness, she picked up the card using a handkerchief as though touching it might contaminate her. Her voice took on performative authority. "We've had issues with these before," she said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Possible fraud cases. I'll need to verify this with the company." She began dialing, each button pressed with theatrical weight. Around the room, whispers spread like wildfire. Customers pretended to browse, but every head was turned. Phones quietly lifted to record. "Yes, this is Melissa Grant from Vellum & Comer," she said into the receiver, her tone sharp. "I need immediate verification on a suspicious black card." The humiliation hung in the air like perfume gone rancid. Maya's assistant trembled but continued recording. Melissa turned toward her like a snake striking. "No recording." "Store policy!" she shouted. "Security, remove her phone or escort her out." The guards hesitated. They knew something felt off, but Melissa's glare pinned them in place. "Do you have any other cards?" she whispered to Maya, leaning close enough for her words to cut like glass. "Something more realistic for someone in your situation?" For a second, silence filled the store. Then Maya smiled. A calm, patient, unnerving smile that made Melissa's stomach tighten without knowing why. "I'll wait," Maya said simply. Melissa blinked. "Excuse me?" I said I'll wait. "Take all the time you need." Her voice carried a weight that didn't match her calmness. It wasn't submission. It was command. Minutes turned to half an hour. Melissa served other customers, performing her charm like an actress on stage. But her rhythm faltered every time she caught Maya's still figure waiting silently at the counter. The humiliation was supposed to end there. It didn't, because Maya Carter wasn't a woman who shouted or fought. She was a woman who planned. When she finally excused herself to the boutique's marble restroom, her assistant followed close behind. The door closed behind them with a soft click. Inside, Maya gripped the sink's edge. For the first time, her calm cracked. Her reflection in the mirror showed a woman swallowing rage hot enough to melt steel. "Record time," she said quietly. Her assistant nodded. 47 minutes. Everything captured. They don't know the live feed is still running. Maya exhaled slowly, her voice trembling for just one breath before turning into steel. "Good, keep it up." She picked up her phone and dialed. One ring. Then another. "Marcus," she said, her tone razor-sharp. "Cancel the Vellum acquisition. Effective immediately." The voice on the other end stammered. "Dr. Carter, are you sure?" "We've spent $4.5 billion, Maya finished. "And not a cent more." She ended the call. The silence that followed was heavier than before. Then she spoke again, calm and lethal. "Prepare legal. Every second of that footage is evidence. Have PR draft a statement in 30 minutes. Focus on systemic bias in luxury retail." Her assistant's phone buzzed wildly. Notifications, comments, thousands of them. "We're trending," she whispered. "It's everywhere." Maya stared into the mirror. Her reflection no longer looked hurt. It looked dangerous. "Good," she said softly. "Let's make sure they never forget this day." Outside, Melissa was laughing again, retelling the story to her staff as if she'd done something heroic. "You should have seen her face," she said. "Tried to act rich. Dropped a fake card on my counter. I taught her a lesson, yes, but not the one she thought. Because by the time she looked at her phone again, the storm had already started. Thousands of comments. Millions of eyes. And one name trending higher every minute, Vellum discrimination. And Melissa Grant hadn't even realized her career was already over. Maya emerged from the restroom with the same calm she'd entered with. She walked back across the marble floor, the sound of her heels echoing like a countdown. She approached the main counter. Her assistant followed, camera still rolling. "This piece," Maya said, pointing to a necklace glittering like trapped firelight. "I'll take it," Melissa blinked. "That necklace is nearly $900,000. "I know," Maya replied. "Run the card," Melissa forced a laugh. "As I said earlier, you haven't met our pre-qualification standards." "Then qualify me now," Maya said. Her tone so level it felt like a threat disguised as politeness. For the first time, Melissa faltered. "Perhaps we should start with something more realistic?" Maya finished for her. "You seem fond of that word." The guards were watching. The customers were filming, and Melissa's performance began to crack. "I'm going to have to ask you to leave," Melissa snapped, the edge of panic slipping into her voice. "Call the police if you must," Maya said, "but make sure you're ready for what comes next." Melissa waved her hand toward the guards, her voice rising. "Get her out, now!" But they hesitated again. The air was shifting, the balance of power quietly turning. And when the sirens began to wail outside, Melissa smiled, thinking she'd won. What she didn't realize was that she'd just summoned the witnesses to her own downfall, because the woman she'd just accused of fraud wasn't only innocent. She was about to expose an empire built on arrogance, and the entire world was already watching. And in that store filled with polished glass and false smiles, the storm finally broke. The front doors burst open as two officers stepped inside, their presence slicing through the chaos. The store fell silent except for the soft hum of the air conditioning and the sharp click of Melissa's heels as she hurried toward them. "Officers, thank God you're here," she said, breathless but smiling like a performer about to deliver her best line. "We have a serious fraud situation. This woman's been using a suspicious card and refusing to leave when asked." She gestured toward Maya with a polished hand. Her voice carried the confidence of someone certain the law would bend to her. Maya didn't move. Her hands rested loosely at her sides. The necklace she'd chosen still shimmered behind glass, untouched. One of the officers, a tall man with a calm face, looked from Melissa to Maya. His name tag read Officer Daniels. "Ma'am," he asked Melissa, "what exactly has this customer done?" "She tried to purchase high-value merchandise using what we believe is a fake black titanium card," Melissa said quickly. "We have strict policies for this. I've called the card company for verification, but she's been uncooperative and, well, aggressive." Daniels turned his gaze to Maya. "Aggressive?" he repeated, his tone measured. "She's been argumentative," Melissa insisted, "and her assistant was recording against store policy." Maya finally spoke, her voice soft but unshakable. "Recording discrimination isn't against the law, officer. It's evidence." Melissa's smile faltered. "Discrimination, oh please. This is about fraud. Don't make it something it's not." Officer Daniels studied both women, then noticed the phone on the counter still buzzing with notifications. "Is that your phone, ma'am?" he asked Melissa. "Yes," she said, puzzled. "It's been going off nonstop," he noted. "You might want to check that." Melissa frowned, unlocking the screen. Her eyes widened as headlines began flashing across her. Notifications. Vellum. Co-accused of racial profiling. Live. Stream captures luxury store humiliation. CEO targeted in viral. Discrimination video, her breath caught. What is this?" Maya met her eyes calm as ever. "It's the truth. And the world's already seen it," Officer Daniels blinked. "CEO?" Maya reached into her purse and handed him a card. "Dr. Maya Carter, Carter Technologies." He hesitated, then pulled out his phone, typing quickly. Within seconds, the search results filled the screen. Forbes covers, business conferences, tech headlines. His partner, Officer Chen, leaned over. "She's one of the top CEOs in the country," he whispered. Melissa's face drained of color. That can't." Maya didn't let her finish. "I was here to finalize an acquisition," she said quietly. "Your store was next on our list, a $4.5 billion deal. But that's no longer happening." The words landed like hammer blows. Melissa's mouth opened, but no sound came out. The other customers stood frozen, phones lifted, eyes wide. Maya turned to the officers. "Would you like to know how this started?" she asked, her tone steady, factual. "She dropped my card on the floor, stepped on it, and told me to learn my place." Officer Daniels' expression darkened. "Is that true?" Melissa's voice cracked. That's taken out of context. I was protecting store policy." "Protecting policy doesn't usually involve insults," he said quietly. The silence that followed was suffocating. Then Maya's phone buzzed again. She glanced at it briefly, then looked up at Melissa. "Your stock is down 17% in the last hour." Melissa blinked rapidly. "What?" "Your parent company's investors are calling for a review," Maya continued. "By tomorrow, they'll be calling for your resignation." The two officers exchanged glances. Officer Daniels cleared his throat. "Dr. Carter, would you like to press charges for harassment?" Melissa's composure shattered. "Wait, no, please," she stammered. "This is all a misunderstanding." "I didn't know." "You didn't need to know who I was," Maya interrupted softly. "You just needed to treat me like a person." Melissa's voice rose in panic. "Please let me fix this. I can process your purchase, I can—" Maya looked down at the floor where her black card still lay untouched, the faint scuff from Melissa's heel marking its surface. She bent down, picked it up, and placed it gently on the counter. "You already processed something," she said. "Your own downfall." The officers didn't say a word. They didn't have to. The balance of power had shifted so completely that even the air felt different. Melissa's phone began ringing again. The name flashing on the screen made her knees weaken. Eleanor Vellum, the company's CEO. "Answer it," Maya said. Melissa hesitated, then tapped the screen with trembling fingers. "Ms. Vellum, I can explain—" A voice roared from the speaker so loudly everyone could hear. "Explain why our company is trending for racism on every platform? Why our stock is plummeting? Why CNN wants an interview in 30 minutes? "I didn't know who she was," Melissa cried. "That's the point," Eleanor snapped. "You shouldn't have to know who she is to treat her with respect. Do you have any idea what you've done?" The line went dead. The boutique was silent again, but this time the silence felt like judgment. Maya picked up the necklace she'd admired earlier. "You can keep this," she said softly. "It already cost you more than it's worth." And with that, she turned and walked out, leaving the shattered fragments of Melissa's world behind. Outside, the city pulsed with life, unaware that inside those glass doors, a career had just ended, and an entire industry was about to be forced to look at itself in the mirror. Because that video wasn't slowing down. It was accelerating, spreading like wildfire. Millions would soon watch it. Thousands would share it. And before the sun set, Maya Carter's name would become synonymous with something far greater than a transaction. It would become a turning point. By nightfall, Vellum & Co. would face the storm. By morning, the entire luxury retail world would be next, and for Melissa Grant, the reckoning had only just begun. By the time the sun dipped behind Manhattan's skyline, the storm had gone global. The video from Maya's assistant had crossed every platform in hours. News anchors debated it. Hashtags multiplied like wildfire. Armed Vellum discrimination trended first in New York, then nationwide. Within a few more hours, it dominated international feeds. Every frame of Melissa dropping the card, her words, "You people need to learn your place," was replayed endlessly. It wasn't just viral. It was historical. In her apartment that night, Melissa sat on the edge of her couch surrounded by the glow of her laptop and the cold weight of realization. Every channel, every site, her face stared back at her. Her voice, once commanding, now sounded monstrous. She scrolled through endless comments. She lost 4.5 billion with one sentence. This is what power looks like when it stays quiet too long. Imagine thinking arrogance could crush dignity. Her phone buzzed nonstop. Calls from the corporate office. From friends who suddenly didn't want to be associated with her. From strangers who had seen what she'd done and had their own stories to tell. Meanwhile, inside a high-rise office that overlooked the East River, Maya was calm. She sat surrounded by her team, reading the early reports. Her PR director looked nervous, holding a tablet full of trending data. "It's spreading faster than expected," he said. "Every outlet wants a statement. CNN, BBC, Reuters. Do you want to respond tonight?" Maya looked up. Her eyes were sharp, steady. "Not yet. Let them talk first. Let the truth echo before we speak." Her assistant, still shaken but inspired, nodded. "It already has. The footage has 40 million views in 7 hours." Maya leaned back in her chair. "Then we'll give them the rest of the story tomorrow. Calm, factual, deliberate. This isn't revenge. It's reform." Across the city, Melissa's night was unraveling. Vellum's board had called an emergency meeting. She wasn't invited. She tried calling Eleanor Vellum again, but the call went unanswered. Her messages to co-workers went unread. When she checked her inbox, the words "termination pending" glared from the newest email. Her stomach twisted. Meanwhile, TV screens across the country showed Maya's name alongside clips of her speeches from previous conferences about equity and corporate accountability. The public now knew who she was. A leader, a visionary, a woman who had quietly reshaped the tech world. And now, she had exposed something far older than one luxury store's prejudice. That night, an anchor on the evening news said it clearly. This isn't just about a credit card. It's about a system that assumes who belongs and who doesn't. One woman refused to accept that system, and the fallout could change an industry. In the morning, Vellum & Co.'s stock dropped another 23%. By noon, trading had been halted. By evening, the parent company issued a desperate statement filled with apologies, promises of investigation, and corporate jargon that fooled no one. But the storm didn't calm. It grew. Employees from other luxury chains began sharing their own stories anonymously. Screenshots of internal policies leaked. Hashtags evolved, retail bias and shop with respect. The conversation shifted from one store to an entire culture of discrimination, disguised as sophistication. Maya read each development with silent focus. She wasn't gloating. She was strategizing. "People need solutions," she said finally. "Not just outrage." Her communications head looked at her curiously. "You already pulled the acquisition. What do you want to do next?" Maya's answer came instantly. "Redirect the funds. $500 million. We'll create the Inclusive Commerce Fund. Grants for minority-owned retail startups. Real luxury built on fairness, not exclusion." The room went silent, then erupted in agreement. It wasn't just retaliation. It was rebuilding. The next morning, her team released the statement. The incident at Velleman Co. reflects deeper issues within the luxury industry. We are withdrawing from all acquisition talks and instead investing $500 million to support diverse entrepreneurs who understand that respect is the foundation of true luxury. The message struck like lightning. It was shared by millions within hours. CEOs reposted it. Politicians quoted it. Students discussed it in classrooms. And Velleman Co. fell apart in real time. Melissa's world imploded with mathematical precision. Her name became shorthand for bias exposed in daylight. The Melissa Grant effect started trending, a term for arrogance caught on camera. The next week, she sat in a lawyer's office hoping for a defense that didn't exist. He listened for 10 minutes before closing his folder. "You can't fight this," he said. "It's all recorded. Every second. There's no case to win." Her last hope dissolved when she checked her phone again. Job boards, emails, rejections, not even small boutiques would respond. Her name was toxic. Days blurred into weeks. Reporters camped outside her building. She kept the curtains drawn, the lights low. When she finally ventured out, people recognized her. Some stared, others whispered. She deleted her social media accounts. It didn't help. Screenshots lived forever. Meanwhile, Maya's influence spread far beyond what she'd imagined. Universities contacted her for lectures on leadership and reform. Civil rights groups asked for partnerships. Even lawmakers reached out seeking advice on fair commerce regulations. 6 months later, the Retail Dignity Act was introduced in Congress, requiring all major retail companies to implement mandatory bias training and equality audits. Maya was invited to testify. She stood before the committee, steady and calm, and said the words that would define her legacy. Prejudice isn't just moral failure. It's economic failure. Businesses lose billions when they build walls instead of bridges. The applause that followed wasn't just respect. It was recognition. By then, Velleman Co. no longer existed. Its flagship store on Fifth Avenue had been sold, its name scrubbed from the awnings. In its place stood something new, the Carter Institute for Ethical Commerce, a training center dedicated to transforming how businesses treat customers and employees alike. And in that same marble space where Melissa once smirked down at her, Maya now stood, watching new employees learn the very lesson that had cost the old world its fortune. But Maya wasn't finished. Because justice wasn't about endings, it was about beginnings. The day the Carter Institute opened, the air outside the building buzzed with voices, cameras, and anticipation. Reporters gathered at the steps, their lenses catching the reflection of the new brass plaque that read, "Founded to redefine integrity and commerce." Inside, the marble floor shone brighter than ever. The same surface that had once witnessed humiliation now polished into a symbol of rebirth. Dozens of young trainees sat in rows, listening intently as Maya Carter spoke. She wasn't standing behind a podium. She never liked barriers. She stood among them, her tone calm but electric. "You don't measure a person's worth by their clothes, their accent, or their color," she said. "You measure it by their character. The cost of forgetting that truth is always greater than any diamond you'll ever sell." Her words didn't sound rehearsed. They sounded lived. Every pause carried the weight of what she'd endured and what she'd chosen to do with it. Among the audience was Emma Liu, the same associate who, months earlier, had been too afraid to challenge Melissa. She was now director of training at the Institute. Her quiet courage had earned her a reputation for integrity in an industry that once rewarded silence. When the session ended, Emma approached Maya, gratitude in her eyes. "You changed everything," she said softly. Maya smiled. "No, Emma, we all did. You were the first person who treated me like a customer that day. That mattered." Emma looked down, remembering how small her act had seemed in that moment. "It didn't feel like enough." "It was," Maya said. "Change always starts small. Someone sees. Someone questions. That's how everything begins." Outside, the media was still running the headline. From humiliation to revolution, Maya Carter's retail awakening changes global industry. But inside, Maya had no interest in headlines. She was focused on people, teaching, mentoring, building what came next. Across the country, boardrooms buzzed with anxiety and awakening. Companies rushed to revise their policies to erase decades of arrogance. Consultants were hired to teach empathy. Executives began speaking about inclusion like it was a new luxury, because now it was. The term the Carter Standard began to circulate. It meant more than training or diversity quotas. It meant accountability. Leaders started asking themselves, would this pass the Carter Standard? Meanwhile, in a small town several states away, Melissa Grant was living in a rented apartment above a diner. Her savings were gone, her phone disconnected. She'd stopped checking the internet months ago, but the world didn't forget easily. Every time she tried to apply for work, her name brought silence. She took night shifts at a gas station under her maiden name, Melissa Hayes, hoping anonymity could shield her from the shadow of who she'd been. She told herself she didn't care anymore. But every night when the store was quiet, she thought of the moment that had destroyed her. The clang of that black card hitting the floor, the look in Maya's eyes, the sound of her own voice saying words she could never take back. For the first time in her life, she began to understand what powerlessness really felt like. Months later, a news segment played on the diner's television about the Carter Institute. Melissa didn't mean to watch, but she couldn't look away. Maya was speaking again about justice, dignity, and change. There was no anger in her tone, just conviction. Melissa sat there frozen, coffee cooling in her hand. For a brief, painful second, she saw what the world saw, a woman who had turned pain into power. A woman she could have respected if she'd only chosen differently that day. That night, Melissa wrote a letter. Not to beg, not to justify, but to acknowledge, Dr. Carter, you don't owe me forgiveness. I wouldn't ask for it. But I've watched what you've built, and I realize now how much I destroyed with one act of arrogance. I believed power came from exclusion. You showed the world that it comes from respect. Thank you for teaching me the lesson I was too blind to learn. She never sent the letter. She folded it carefully and tucked it inside her old wallet, next to the last pay stub from Vellum & Co. Meanwhile, Maya's mission continued to grow. 6 months after the institute opened, her fund had supported 200 minority-owned businesses. Independent jewelers, clothing designers, luxury artisans, people who had once been invisible were now thriving. Her movement wasn't fueled by anger but by momentum. She wasn't erasing the past, she was replacing it. At the annual World Business Ethics Conference, Maya took the stage before an audience of global executives. Her voice carried the same calm precision that had once silenced an entire store. Luxury, she said, has never been about price tags. It's about how you make people feel when they walk through your doors. Every interaction is a choice. You can build barriers or you can build bridges. Choose the bridges. They last longer. Applause filled the hall. Cameras flashed. The story of one moment had become a global movement. But later that night, when she returned to her hotel room overlooking the quiet skyline, Maya stood by the window and exhaled slowly. The city lights flickered against the glass, each one a story she hadn't heard yet. Each one a life she might one day reach. Justice wasn't an ending. It was a beginning that demanded constant work. And as the clock ticked past midnight, somewhere in another city, another store, another manager made the same judgment Melissa once had. But now the world was watching. And every time it happened again, someone somewhere remembered Maya Carter's story and decided not to stay silent. A year passed, and the name Maya Carter had become more than a headline. It had become a symbol, a quiet, living reminder that power could be graceful and justice didn't have to shout to be heard. The world had changed, but not nearly enough for her to stop pushing. One spring afternoon, Maya sat in her office surrounded by reports. The Inclusive Commerce Fund had grown faster than anyone imagined. Dozens of small businesses had become profitable, communities had found new hope, and young entrepreneurs were learning to build success without sacrificing humanity. But something still pulled at her. She knew that transformation was never complete. There would always be another wall to tear down. Her assistant entered with a hesitant smile. "You have a visitor," she said softly. She didn't have an appointment, but she insisted on seeing you. She says it's important. Maya looked up. Who is it? She wouldn't say. But she looks nervous. For a moment, Maya almost said no. Her schedule was full. Her time too valuable for unannounced visits. But something in her assistant's tone made her pause. "Send her in," she said finally. The door opened slowly. The woman who stepped inside looked older than her years, her clothes plain, her eyes shadowed by sleepless nights. She hesitated at the threshold, clutching a worn envelope in her hands. Maya recognized her instantly. "Melissa," she said quietly. The former manager flinched at the sound of her name. "Dr. Carter," she murmured, her voice trembling. "I'm sorry to come without notice." Maya gestured toward the seat across from her desk. "You can sit." Melissa nodded, sitting carefully as if the chair might reject her. For a long moment, neither spoke. The hum of the air conditioning filled the space between them. Finally, Melissa placed the envelope on the desk. "I wrote this months ago," she said. "I didn't plan to deliver it, but I needed to face what I did." Maya didn't reach for it. "Why now?" Melissa's eyes glistened. "Because every day since that moment I've watched you turn the worst thing I ever did into something that made the world better. And I couldn't live with myself if I didn't acknowledge that." Maya studied her face. Once proud, now stripped bare of pretense. "You came here for forgiveness?" "No," Melissa whispered. "I came to take responsibility. Forgiveness would be a gift I don't deserve." The room stayed still. The weight of her words felt heavier than any jewel that had ever passed through that store. Maya finally picked up the envelope and opened it. Inside was the letter Melissa had written. The ink faded at the edges. She read it silently, the same quiet grace in her expression that had carried her through humiliation, triumph, and transformation. When she finished, she folded the paper again and set it down gently. "You were right about one thing," she said softly. "Power built on exclusion always collapses. You just happened to be standing under it when it fell." Melissa's breath hitched. "I know." Maya leaned back, her tone even. "Do you work now?" "I manage the night shift at a gas station," Melissa said. "It's not much, but it's honest." There was no mockery in Maya's eyes. Only a quiet kind of sorrow. "Maybe that's where real change starts," she said. "When honesty replaces arrogance." Tears welled in Melissa's eyes. "You could have ruined me completely. You didn't. You turned everything into something good. I don't understand how you did that." Maya looked out the window at the skyline glowing in the distance. "Because revenge ends the story. Change keeps it going." Melissa nodded slowly, absorbing the words like medicine that stung before it healed. When she stood to leave, she hesitated by the door. "Dr. Carter, thank you for seeing me." Maya's reply was quiet, but it carried finality. "Learn from it, Melissa." "That's how you honor what was lost." Melissa nodded once, then walked out. The door closed softly behind her. Maya sat for a long time, staring at the envelope on her desk. It wasn't pity she felt. It was understanding, the kind that comes from surviving what others tried to break. She turned her chair toward the city again. The sun was setting, casting gold light across glass towers. Somewhere below, people were still judging and being judged, still buying, selling, building, falling, starting again. The cycle would continue, but maybe now fewer people would have to learn the hard way what dignity truly meant. Her phone buzzed, a new message from her communications team. The Carter Standard had just been adopted as policy by another major international brand. She smiled faintly. One more brick in the foundation. That night, as the office emptied and the city lights came alive, Maya stood alone by the window. She thought of the past. The card on the floor, the silence after the insult, the decision to respond not with fury but with purpose. The world had changed because she refused to stay small in the face of cruelty. And in that quiet moment, she finally allowed herself to feel the weight of what she'd done, not triumph, not vengeance, just peace. Outside, the city moved on, brighter for her having walked through it. And in the glow of the fading light, one truth echoed through the glass in the air and every heart that had heard her story. Dignity never begs for permission. It simply stands unshaken until the world learns to see it.